So let's get started and talk about what agency information we're going to be requiring. And that requires us to take a look at where we're located in Florida. I will show you and break down the location throughout this set of video lectures. So we'll talk about agency jurisdiction first. So our site is actually off of 1007 Votah Road. It's in Apopka, Florida. What I've done is given you an aerial map with road names on it. We've got a basic survey already done, and right here is our site location. So you can already see from Google Earth a lot of information that you can collect for our drainage project. Now, when we go to the jurisdiction, we're going to be talking about water management specifically in this course. So the jurisdiction is actually going to be controlled by Apopka in their land development code. They have design storms. So remember, how much does it rain and at what frequency? So the design storm events is going to be, we're going to be using the SCS or the NRCS Type 2 storm, and we're going to be designing it for pre versus post runoff. Our development conditions. We're going to do it for the runoff, and we're going to do it for the volume in CFS. So we're going to do acre inches or acre feet and CFS. The storm events that we're going to be looking at are the 25, 24 hour and the 100-year 24 hour. That is for storm ponds for the actual stormwater management facility. For roadways and the storm pipes, we're going to be talking about a 10-year 24-hour storm event. This is for Apopka, and I got that from the Land Development Code, and I'm going to have you go to their website to download that code, but I'll show it to you in a second. The other one is going to be St. John's River Water Management District. Their code says it's a Type 2 storm. Again, you're looking at peak design, flow, CFS, and the runoff volume in acre feet that you have to provide in a stormwater management pond. They're only looking at the 25-year, 24-hour storm, so that's the precipitation event that you're looking at, and you're looking at the 100-year, 24-hour storm. In theirs, both of these storms have pollution abatement. Apopka actually says go to St. John's Water Management District to determine what pollution and what design storm events are actually required, and you're going to use the one that's most strict. Now, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to switch over to Canvas, and we're going to take a look at, in the modules, I want you to take a look at the agency's jurisdiction. So I've given you a couple hyperlinks. Those are in blue. The first one is going to be to the Land Development Code. Now, typically, if you don't know it, then you're just going to type in Apopka Land Development Code or Apopka, Florida. If you click on the Land Development Code here, it goes to a PDF. We're actually interested in the section 6.05.001, and I've just happened to download that section already. And it is the stormwater management system. And I've highlighted the design requirements. As you can see that it's going to be whatever is the stringent practice based on either St. John's Water Management District or in here. They'll set the standards. So the post-development design-based storm is the 25-year, 24-hour. And that is for doing retention ponds or detention ponds. The other thing that's interesting here, like I said, pollution abatement in accordance with St. John's, they tell you what the finished floor elevation is. So if you're near, like we're near McCoy Lake, I believe it's McCoy, it says that you have to have 20 feet above the 100-year elevation, or 20 feet now, that's really tall, 20 inches above the 100-year storm event. The other thing is all drainage discharge structures require a bleed down, and I'll discuss that when we start to talk about the hydraulics of designing. The other thing that they talked about here is they go ahead and tell us what that 24-hour storm rainfall is. So we don't have to look it up, but I'm going to go ahead and have you all look it up and compare. They say 24-hour inch rainfall is 8.6 inches for the design. And the other thing that was interesting is they said that all the ponds are going to be dry bottom, so they're not going to be wet ponds. So the project next to ours is a dry pond, so we're going to be a dry pond likewise. Now, because it's dry pond, that means it has a different established regulations for water quality that you have to provide. Okay, so it goes on and tells more information. If you're interested in geotechnical engineering, then remember when we talked about our soils, A soils are good draining soils. Well, the geotechnical engineer has to tell us what type of soils we need in the bottom of our pond to make sure that the water drains from our pond or can seep into the ground. Here it says design criteria, facilities, peak flow rate, 25-year storm event. It goes through and says that you have to basically say pre versus post. It also talks about all routing calculation must be considered tailwater. Tailwater means that there's water at the downstream end that we're tying into. And we'll get into this type of stuff more when we're actually doing the hydraulics behind it. We first have to figure out how much water is coming to us based on our hydrology portion. The other thing is all ponds shall be dry within 72 hours. So that means in 3 days, boom, all the water is supposed to be out of your pond and you're supposed to have a dry bottom again, okay? You also have information that has to do with landlocked ponds where you can't actually discharge additional water. It has to hold in the pond and then seep down into the grounds. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But these are all of the rules that are required. There's a soils report. Again, it goes back to not just us looking excuse me, at the NRCS map, but a true soils engineer needs to go out and take samples. You also have requirements on slopes of our ponds. I'm sorry. We all know and we've seen ponds in our subdivisions. Well, those slopes, those angled lines have a certain slope depending on the depth. So the side slopes, I'm going to assume for our project, excuse me, we have a depth of 4 to 5 feet and it needs to be a 5 to 1. Here's another interesting thing. Ponds need to be curvilinear. That means we don't want a rectangular pond. I love rectangular ponds because they're the easiest things to draw, but they don't want rectangular ponds. If the pond doesn't have the established slope, then you need to fence it. The other thing is it's written here. It says, and I should have highlighted this because this is really important. It says all ponds shall have a minimum 1 foot freeboard to the design high water resulting from a design storm. That means it has to fill up only to a foot of the top. And again, more information when we start to design for our ponds. But it's really important to begin our design with understanding what rules we're controlled by once we get there. So I want to go ahead and introduce standards and design practices and whose agency is controlling us. The next one is the design storm event and minimum pipe size. I'm going to pause here and we'll come back to these when we actually get to the road because I don't want to explain all this and then have to re-explain it a little bit later just to remind you. So I'm going to pause here, but they do have the information on size of the pipes, how long those pipes can be before you have to have some type of an inlet, the slope of the pipe, etc. I'll post this for now and for when we start to design our storm ponds. Okay? All right. One thing that I forgot to mention about permitting, here's the second hyperlink for the St. John's Water Management District. I'm going to click on the e-permitting link and what it'll do, or hopefully it'll do, it'll take you to what we call an environmental resources permit is what we'll need. That means all projects that have stormwater ponds or storm systems typically require a permit through the water management districts. You can go ahead and click on e-permitting to either create a login or you can do permitting documentations. Before I log in, I created a generic one for myself, but this is the environmental resource permit. And basically, it goes over what activities you're required to permit. Anything with surface waters, wetlands, anything that has to do with water quality needs to be permitted. And there's also another thing called consumptive use permits. Consumptive use permits are for irrigation, typically for your agricultural people. Anytime you're using water to put on the land and you're using aquifer water. Nowadays, when we go to the e-permitting, we're actually going to be putting all of our applications online. That means originally we used to do it by hand when I did it, but now it's digitally. So, again, can't type. I created a login and I created a couple fake permits that I'm going to apply to. And if you take a look at these, and you can print these download, you have to fill out all these tabs, and the tabs have certain things that you're required. I'm going to go back to the dashboard. This just has information on me, on the project that I possibly want to work in. So all of this data tells the jurisdiction what information they're going to need. What's the activity? You can attach documents. Are there wetlands affected? So it is a big application process that you have to go through. So on the next one, resource permit, I'll show you, and I'm just quickly showing you to show you that what you have. Same one, sorry. I might have actually clicked on two up. That's what I want to do. There's sections that you have to fill out. Section A, everybody has to fill out because any application requires Section A. Section E, I believe, is for wetlands. D is for docks. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head. But if I go back to the permitting documentation links, it's here on the bottom, I can go to the ERP and I can download, and it says here's what all the sections are to permit a stormwater management pond. It also has the rules and regulations on how to design by. Now, I may ask you in the future as a homework assignment to go through here. Look, it's 654 pages. I don't think you want to go through all of that, but it's similar to what was required. The design standards for the design storm, tailwater calculations, things like that are all in this manual. I only want to cover a few things in this class. I don't want to overwhelm with how much each agency is required for. But I will ask you to download or look at a certain section so you can get familiar with the website and where to find information. All of the water management districts here in Florida have a website like this. South Florida Water Management District, Southwest Florida, St. John's, I believe there's Northwest, there's the Suwannee River. All the water management districts have something similar to this. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and pause here to talk about our next topics.